TWI is a research and technology consultancy founded on this site in Cambridge in 1946, so around for over 70 years. It's a membership-based organisation with 700 members in 82 different countries. The fundamental objective of TWI is to serve our customers in the field of welding, joining and associated engineering technologies, including structural integrity and inspection, to make them as safe, reliable and as competitive possible in the world market.
Training and assessment is very important in our world. Essentially, for the individual, it's a license to operate. To be certified in a particular scheme that's governed by UCAS or by another scheme in another country, unless they have the right certification in place, they can't operate in that field. So the whole training and certification process is vitally important.
So I've been involved in learning the Surpass product and then trying to help migrate our exam papers onto the system and looking at the best ways of using all the features of Surpass. Particularly for our initial exams that we chose to put into Surpass, they're quite straightforward, they're mostly multiple choice, so that's really fit well. The support is good. Obviously it's a very dynamic product, so there's a lot of releases, we're getting lots of new features all the time.
We have set our overseas centres primarily to support our training activities, and Malaysia is one example of that. There are other facilities in India, in the Middle East and in other parts of Southeast Asia, and we have some very, very clever and competent people in high levels of inspection and training that help to train the overseas candidates that we cover across the world.
Prior to that, they were coming to the UK for training. We saw a local need to set up training centres there and certification, and it's been highly successful. Probably globally, they satisfy the vast majority of our training.
So one of our main business drivers was to reduce the turnaround time. So our paper from the candidate taking the exam to receiving the results could be up to 4 to 6 weeks. So this was an opportunity to reduce it down, and what we can do now, the systems can do that within 48 hours. Quite often they always have a practical element. So there might be a physical sample to assess, perhaps a pipe or a fillet weld or a plate, and that will show a weld, and it will have a certain number of defects in, so the candidate will be assessing those defects. So we had to always bear in mind how that was actually going to work, and ensure that candidates got a randomly allocated sample, so the person next to each other wasn't doing the same one. We used quite a lot of different technologies through our journey. We initially started with an Intel compute stick, so the very small computers that you plug into the HDMI. We selected those to start with because they were quite a low-cost entry point, and they were quite flexible. We were thinking that we might need to move them from one room to the next, so actually they offered us quite a lot of flexibility in that. Then we moved on to the all-in-one option, which again looks really neat, and we were also able to run e-learning, for example, other sort of reasons for using the computers than just taking exams on. And now we're actually moving on to iPads, looking at the flexibility of those to deliver them in our more remote locations around the world. So taking those to places like Vietnam, which might not have a test centre, they might run their course out of a hotel. So the examiner, the invigilator, could just turn up with the iPads all set up with the exam already downloaded on.
But from a business point of view as well, we've seen many benefits. So the obvious one is the reduction in paper, but the digital offering and the speed that provides us has actually made us internally examine where we can have some efficiency gains as well. So that's benefited internally our processes.
The importance of innovation really can't be overstated. You just can live and die by what's happening today. You know, if you don't invest in R&D for the future, you don't see the coming trends. We've talked about electric vehicles for cars and power generation. There are things being developed now that probably weren't on our radar 20 years ago. And innovation is key to that, whether it is disruptive, so it really makes the market think again, or whether it is just additive with regard to just making things more competitive. But at the core of it all are people as well, and if we don't train people well and have people who are in responsible positions, the industry will suffer enormously because of that.
Design, develop training programs and examination systems, design them robustly, but don't lose sight of what the customer requires and the customer user experience.